So now that you're on the other side, you have had this 9-year marriage of happiness on the other side. Not saying that we're going to have an iron fist, you have to do it this way or this other way. Do you think by and large it is a good idea for younger widows to remarry, or would you say it's just a completely, depends on the situation?
I do think it depends. I think, as I met several, we called ourselves widows with kiddos, a lot of widows my age. And before I even was telling them anything, because I didn't want to even be judged in that community, some of them said, I am very much content being alone. And I don't want all that comes with a marriage because there was a stretch of time where I was like, I consult with no one. I compromise zero. Now, granted, I'm doing all the stuff, but I also don't have any marital fights. I'm like, so that's a plus. And so some of them were kind of like, once was enough. I'm really okay. Maybe they'll find someone in the future. Maybe they won't. So it's some of them I have noticed have remarried. Some of them have even gone on to have children together. But I do think it is so different, whatever God's plan looks like. And I certainly was not planning. I told my mother-in-law and meant your son was enough love for a lifetime. And I also thought, I'm in my 30s with a litter of children. Who wants this package? This is like the dent and scratch package in the back of the store. Get a 20-year-old without kids who's got like a fresh, clean slate. But like you mentioned about the Bible, I often think about the story of Ruth and Boaz. Not that I'm awesome like Ruth, but how Jason very much was this Boaz of treating me with integrity instead of like, you poor little widow, like I'll fix everything. Instead, just as Boaz would tell Ruth, still glean from the outer edges of the fields, like, yeah, you need to get yourself fed and grab these items he still was doing that, just knowing like, I know that you're a functional woman and mom. I'm not here to be a rescuer, but in so many ways, he was that redeeming quality that is a reflection of God ultimately. So it's been such a marvel at how kind and compassionate God is, but I don't know if it's for everybody. I think everybody's
Sure.
got such a different purpose, from God.
Sure. Sure. Yeah, it's I tend to agree with you that there are different circumstances. I actually have some, of course they're not quite your example because they're older. But my grandma, my grandpa, who's actually my namesake, he passed away before I was born, and my granny was like in her 50s, never has really had a desire to remarry. And then my father-in-law, my mother-in-law just passed away last year, had kind of a long bout with cancer. And of course, it's just been a year in. Could things change? I mean, it could, but goodness, I would put a lot of money that he probably wouldn't get remarried just based off of who he is. But again, it is a little bit different when you're a little bit older. You've got kids and grandkids taking care of each other. You're in your 30s with, yeah, all these little ones. Again, it does kind of change things up a little bit, but I think it speaks to what you've mentioned before of having these people around you, friends, family, church, to not just segregate into yourself and try to figure it all out on your own. You're dealing with grief and raising little ones. That's a lot. It definitely does not need to just be only on your shoulders. You need to have some other people in your camp for sure.
Yeah. I had never seen the body of Christ in action like I did in those initial months. I'm talking strangers would come up to me in the store. I don't know that because this was all over the news because it's like,
Mhm.
oh, a school teacher, he's well known in the community and it happened on school property. So it's like a whole thing in the papers and stuff. And so people were very kind, would come up to me at baseball games and people would just say, I know who you are and I have prayed for your family. I'm like,
Mm.
that's the best gift you can ever give anybody is to pray for them. That's a selfless act where you get nothing in return. And so that's when I really saw, I'm like, oh, this is what the Bible means about the hands and the feet. Because I've read about it. I'm like, yeah, yeah, yeah. Head, shoulders, knees, and toes. It means nothing to me. And then I was like, this is it. This is what kept us afloat, obviously through God. But it's like people were sending gift cards so that we could eat because I had no interest in cooking. Or people said, we're going to
Yeah.
get your house cleaned. We will take your kids to play miniature golf. We will bring them back in 2 hours. They will be okay. We will feed them. They will be safe. Use this time however you want. And you've got 2 hours, go. So the way that people showed up, I was like, wow, this is how God uses people. Because if you don't have people, I don't know how you make it. And if you don't have faith, I also don't know how you make it. So you're absolutely right.
I that's something that, a few other guests I've had on the show and just people in my personal life that we've talked about, particularly as Christians, we have a yeah, this different kind of worldview. And not that we're happy that bad things happen, but we just kind of know that they will. Now, not everyone's going to lose a spouse like you did at a young age, but we're all going to have to deal with some form of trial. That's you mentioned we live in a world that has been tainted by sin, so therefore it's not a perfect world. And that's something that's important for all the listeners. Not that, hey, you're going to lose a spouse, but you're going to have something happen at some point that's going to be hard. So let's not wait for disaster to strike and then find a community of believers. Not that you can't, that you certainly can afterwards, but how much sweeter and better it is for us if I already have some things in place. And then when disaster strikes, I don't even have to do anything. That, like you said, the hands and feet, they come and just do it. That's what the church is called to do in those situations. So I think that's great. And that speaks volumes of your late husband, that he helped lead your family in a way that he served you in that way even after he was gone. That's when I'm having these conversations with my wife, again, not to obsess over it, but I want to do that same thing. I want my family to be in a place to where if something did happen to me, they're not left in a state of shock and have no idea what to do. No, they've got friends and family and church family to be there to take that up. So if you're a listener, and particularly if you're a listener that has any type of Christian faith and you're not plugged into church, uh, it's the time to do it now. That's not wait for disaster to strike, because it will, like Debbie's saying, will come massively in handy when you need them. You don't even have to ask; they're just right there.